Hello everybody and welcome back to this tutorial, and what we're going to take a look at right now is something that is similar to lists. Now, we actually saw how we can create lists, manipulate lists, remove elements, add elements, insert elements, sort lists, and all of that stuff. But right now, let me introduce you to some of the things that are actually similar to lists and that are called tuples. Now, basically, the difference is that you can't really change the values in here as you did in the lists. But before we do all of that, you might have noticed that there are certain similarities between a string and a list. For example, if you have a string that is, for example, animal, so animal equals, and then let's say it is elephant, okay, and you can select the first element of this string just by specifying animal and then in the bracket 0, oops, yeah, I specified the wrong bracket, so animal. Right here you can see that it will retrieve a letter E, so this is rather similar as to a list, as you can see that we can also select the different elements from the string itself, and those elements will simply be just a single character. So those are some of the similarities between the lists and the strings. As you can see right here also, if you just specify a negative index, it will also work on strings, just by specifying you the last actual element or character in the string itself. You can also do something like this, so specifying from 1 to 5th element. You can see it is left, it does retrieve it, same as in the lists. And you can also use it in for loops as you used the lists in the previous video. I believe we did it in a for loop, or maybe it was 2 videos ago, doesn't even matter. So for letter in animal, you can actually print each letter right here, so print letter. And you can see it will work. It works the same way in the lists too. So there is also, so I just wanted to point out that there are a lot of similarities between lists and strings. Now there is also something similar you can create to lists just by specifying normal brackets instead of square brackets. For example, if you just type here stuff equals open and close normal brackets, which we usually saw in the actual function declaration, but right now this is not a function, so you can just specify multiple things as you do in lists. So word, then separate by comma, 32 as an integer, then separate by comma, 0.2 as a float value. This will still work, but this is not a list. The difference is, as I said at the beginning of the video, is that you can't really change values in this list. You can select them just as we did in the strings and in the lists right here. You can select them the same way, such as stuff, and then the first element will be word stuff. The second element will be the integer value of 32. You can also select stuff and then from first till the third, which will be 32 and then 0.2. You can do all of that, but if you, for example, yeah, you can also, let me just show you, you can also check the length of the actual stuff. As we can see, we get 3 elements back. But as soon as you actually try to do something like this, so stuff and then the third element, which is going to be 0.2 float value, equals to, for example, 20, you will get an error saying tuple object does not support item assignment, because this is something that is called tuple, and it is different in lists in syntax. As you see right here, we use normal brackets, and also it is different because in tuples you can't change values that are in the tuple itself. Okay? Simply specifying the element right here and selecting it to be 20 won't work, while as this will work in the lists themselves. Now, you can do something different if you, for example, want to create or you want to add a value to the tuple or change a value to the tuple. You can do it in a different way by converting lists to tuples and tuples to lists. It works same as converting a string of number into an integer of number, as we saw before using the string and int and float functions. Those are the functions that we use to convert different types of variables into another type of variable. We can use same thing right here. So if you remember, for example, if we have a string number, to be equal to 20 between the single quotes, which this is a string. If you just type here type string underscore number, it is not an integer, so don't confuse it. If you wanted to create it to be an integer, you can just do something like this. So integer number will be equal to integer function, and then in between the brackets you specify string of number. And therefore int underscore number will be equal to an integer, as you can see right here. Okay, you can do the same thing with lists as well. So let's say we have a list that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as the elements of the list. So it basically has 5 integer values. And let's say we actually want to create a tuple from this list. So let's say we call it tuple from list will be equal to simply using tuple function onto our list. Therefore, if you just type here type list, you can see it is a list. And if you just type here type tuple from list, you can see it is a tuple, and it also has the same elements. Not type, I want you to just print the tuple from list. It has the same elements, just the difference is these elements right now can't really be changed or removed, or basically, you can't really change the value of 3 to a 7 if you wanted to. And also the brackets are normal and not square brackets as in lists, so that is the only difference. And you can also change it back if you wanted to. So for example, it really has something different once you try to change it back. It's not the same, so you can't really use something like this. So list from tuple equals list from which list is a function that will create an actual list. So list from tuple from list. This will not work, as it would say list object is not callable. So this reverse function will not really work once you try to create a list from a tuple. In order to create a list from a tuple, you actually need to type something like this. So list from tuple will be equal, and then open 2 brackets, close 2 brackets, and in between those 2 brackets you need to specify the elements of the tuple, which in our case are just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but right now we can specify, for example, 1, and then a as a word, and then basically 1.2 as a float value, and then it will work. We will not get error anymore. Therefore, if you just type your list from tuple, you can see right now this will be a list. Oops, let me just see. Yeah, I forgot to use an actual function right here, pardon me. We actually need to do something like this. List from tuple. We need to use this. Copy. Paste right here, and then specify the list prefix right here. What? Let me just check this right here. If I just paste it, maybe it is like this. List object is not callable. Oh, okay, that's because I actually used a name list right here. So let me just restart this. Yeah, this is an actual error that I told you even before. Don't use an actual name for certain variables or lists that are also pre-designed in Python 3, as you can see right here. List is a used list to actually make a list, but you should never call list simply just a list, because this is an inbuilt function in Python that will convert anything to a list. As you can see right here, let us create a simple tuple once again. So tuple object equals to, for example, let's use the same value, so 1a and 1.2, and then we want to convert it to list. So list underscore object, make sure to call it differently than just simply a list, will be equal to list from tuple object. And you can see right now list object is the same elements right here, just right now this is a list, and then you can change some value. For example, you want to select list object from the second element will be equal to b instead of a. List object just to check if we successfully created it, and then you can convert it back to tuple. So tuple object object is equal to tuple from the list object. And now tuple object is successfully changed, even though we can't really change the tuple object. So we had to convert it back to a list, then convert it back to a tuple in order to change this value right here to be equal to this value right here. Okay. One more interesting thing that you actually should know is that you can actually create a list from a string if you want to. So let's say we have a string that is equal to, for example, today is a really good day. And this is our string, and let's say we want to actually convert it to a list. We will also use the simple list function. So list underscore from underscore string will be equal to a list from string. And if we just try to print it right here, you can see our list from string. Oops, oh yeah, I accidentally named this list from sting. Doesn't even matter, let us just type it like that, list from sting. And therefore you can see that right now we have a list that is consisted of all the elements in this actual string that we specified right here. So every single element is a single character, so that is how converting strings to lists work. Okay, so there is also another way that you can actually copy lists using Python 3 library. We saw previously how we can actually copy lists. You simply just select another list to be equal to a third list, but you can actually use a Python library if you feel like that will be easier for you. The library that you can use is called copy, so import copy in order to import that library, and you can simply just, let's say we create list1 to be equal to, let's say, some sentence. So in the room there are 8 chips. So simple as that. This is our list 1. And let's say we want to copy that list to a different list using the copy library that we imported. We can do it simply like this. So list2 equals copy.copy list1. Simple as that. And if you just print list2, you will see that the actual list2 will have the same elements as list1. If you just perform a simple check, list1 equals list2, you can see that we get a value of true, which means they are exactly the same. So that will be about it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I will see you in the next one. Bye!